Hey, what's up everybody? So today I wanted to talk about Mario Kart in virtual reality. This is real. This is something I didn't think existed until I actually looked it up. I'm like, yeah, okay. So Nintendo has a Mario Kart GP VR experience you can go to if you fly to Anaheim or Japan or London. I don't really have that kind of money. What I do have, though, is a particular set of skills. These skills involving, of course, modding and emulation. I'm very fond of emulation for these exact reasons, actually. There is a branch of Dolphin, the Wii/GameCube/N64 on Wii emulator, called DolphinVR, that does exactly what it sounds like. It injects the emulation into a room scale VR space. You may have seen this already online. I thought, oh, okay, well, this is beyond me. There's no possible way I can do this. No, it's actually really, really freaking easy. I was very surprised and amazed and astounded and so happy that I found this. So the latest stable version of Dolphin VR is version 5.0-250, which is actually 4 years old at this point. It was released July 13th, 2016, and it seems to be more or less a dead emulator. They released it, one of the main developers for Dolphin, unfortunately passed away, and so Dolphin as an emulator, its progress has more or less halted. Not entirely, but it has slowed to a crawl compared to what it once was. It's a very unfortunate event and deeply saddened the modding community at that time when it happened. But neither Dolphin nor Dolphin VR has seen a stable release since 2016. Now, there have been beta releases of at least Dolphin, the regular emulator, but Dolphin VR kind of seems to be a dead project. So it is available. It is as good as it's going to get right now, and I gotta say, even with its little problems, it's still very, very fun. I consider it to be very good in quality of VR emulation. And this is, you are taking a game that was not made for virtual reality, and you're injecting it into virtual reality. And that is a feat by itself that deserves praise. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it is stable enough that I consider it to be one of the best virtual reality experiences, virtual reality games you will be able to play on your HTC Vive or Oculus Rift. I highly recommend looking into it. There are instructions out there. I'm not going to go into the deep details of how to get it working. At the end of this video, I'll go ahead and show you my settings, so that way if you are trying to load it up, you can see how I got it to be stable on my computer. My computer specs are pretty straightforward. I've got a 4th gen Core i7, it's a 4400, so it's not even overclocked, and I can run this just fine. I'm running an RTX 2080, along with 32 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, so not anything super fast. Like, yeah, obviously the graphics card is my clinching point. I've got great VR rendering in general, thanks to that graphics card, but what I found is that Dolphin VR actually primarily uses your CPU for emulation, because from my understanding, the Wii had a single processor architecture. It was a APU instead of a separate CPU and GPU. So it didn't have a separate video graphics processor. And the Wii basically had the same architecture as the GameCube, which was already underpowered compared to its competition. Both the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox were pushing for high quality graphics and DVD loading, so you could create massive, beautiful games that were incredibly fun to play. And Nintendo, being Nintendo, focused more on developing their own intellectual properties than trying to match the competition, which, in all fairness, has worked out very well for them over the years. I consider the Purple Lunchbox to be a huge success. The Wii, of course, was the highest selling console for years. I think the PS4 might have passed it up by now. In total sales, I can't be sure. But because of its niche marketing tactics, it outshined both the PS3 and the Xbox 360, no contest. So of course, modders, being what they are, wanted to get the Wii working on more powerful hardware. So we saw emulators start to be developed so that games could be rendered at higher resolutions with higher resolution textures, just giving it an all-around sharper image, and in some cases even providing higher quality shaders. But one of the things I did not see coming was the enthusiasm for getting a lot of these games working in virtual reality. When the Vive and the Rift originally came out, there was a huge push. I think it even started during the Rift Developer Kit 2 phase, of virtual reality, when they were just sending out those DKs, there was a huge push to get some of these emulators working in virtual reality, because the only thing better than playing these games is living in them. This is all information that I've looked up in hindsight, of course. At the time, I was more focused on enjoying the virtual reality experiences that were there when I first got my headset, rather than seeking out new ones or seeking out separate ways to inject older games into virtual reality. Vorpex was the small exception. Unfortunately, I actually never did get Vorpex working, which is frustrating because I paid for it. That is a project for another day. Right now, though, I want to focus on DolphinVR, just how incredible this emulator is. This is one of those things that childhood me didn't even dream of. I had dreamed of playing Mario Kart in the arcades, which eventually did happen, and I was super psyched when I found those with Mario Kart Arcade GP, which was super, super fun. I got to play that a couple times in a couple different arcades and then on a cruise. Unfortunately, due to the high humidity, the arcade machine on the cruise was heavily damaged and the image was so horribly faded, it kind of took away from the entire experience. But I knew I would be able to recreate that same arcade feeling at home with a racing wheel should I ever choose to. Never once did I think I should try to get this working in virtual reality until I saw it on video a couple years ago. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of neat. But at the time I was thinking, oh, it's too complicated for me. I'll never be able to figure it out. But since I got my new racing wheel, I've been wanting to explore every inch of possibilities regarding racing in virtual reality. I love the shit out of Project Cars. I love the shit out of Dirt Rally 2.0. I love the shit out of Euro Truck Sim 2 and American Truck Sim, both of which have VR beta branches you can opt in for through Steam, and they are amazing amounts of fun. But in the back of my mind, I remembered, didn't Mario Kart work in virtual reality? And that's when I looked more into it, looked it up, figured out how it's getting working. My problem was I realized the first time I tried to set it up, I tried using just the regular standard Dolphin emulator. I didn't pick the VR branch. I thought they had just added just a tick box within Dolphin itself to allow for injection into virtual reality headsets. I hadn't realized that it was actually a separate branch of the program entirely. I have learned since then, of course, and it took me about an hour to get set up, so virtually painless compared to other ad hoc virtual reality experiences. Thankfully, there's a really dedicated modding team out there and a ton of tutorials available online, so you could get this set up even faster than me if you wanted to. The reason it took me so long is because not only did I had to watch the entire video, scrape through all the unnecessary shit before I was able to glean the important information from it. There was also a little bit of troubleshooting I had to do at one point because the old method of injecting some of the hide object codes into the emulator no longer works, so you have to shimmy around it. Again, I'll explain that at the end of the video, but for now, I just want to gush about how fucking fun this is. Yeah, now like I said, it's imperfect. You got scraped up menus, you got things that are fucked up in the heads-up display, some flashing textures here and there, but the actual racing part of it itself, the levels, your opponents, your own kart, everything looks just gorgeous, and it runs buttery smooth in most levels. Some tracks have a lot of objects in them, and so the emulation is actually a little bit janky, and unfortunately right now there's no real good way to cut down on that other than to just minimize the amount of processes your CPU is handling at any given time. For example, when I first got it working, I played through all 4 of the Grand Prix, the original Grand Prix, and I loved it. Every second of it was just so much fun. Cannot express enough. I was trying to optimize the controls, figure out what felt best, what was going to work, what wasn't. Originally, I had it set up so that the clutch pedal was my jump button, because that feels more like how it did when I played it in the arcade. Unfortunately, I realized very quickly that wasn't going to work out so well because I constantly used the jump and the drift, and so I was hurting my ankle after about 30 minutes of playing like that. So I switched it to my shifter paddle instead, which was otherwise going unused. Now that clutch pedal is a secondary reverse camera button. So after that initial test phase, I knew I had to make a video about it. So just like Project Cars, I set up OBS, got everything hooked in, video came up just fine, everything looked great. I realized that the way the video rendered on screen, it would stretch when I stretched it out into a widescreen box. So I had to kind of eyeball it to get it to the right screen resolution. taller than wider. So that way it matched what I was seeing on screen and it didn't give you a stretched image and look terrible. What I didn't anticipate was overloading the CPU. Unfortunately, when you're trying to record at the same time as running the emulator, because the emulator is so heavily reliant on the CPU and not the GPU, unlike most modern video games, it was causing some delay in the emulation. And so about once a second, I was getting a stutter. You can definitely hear it better than you can see it. Let's see. As you can see, I have to kind of zoom in and put my head into place every time I start the game. It isn't bad, it's just a little obnoxious. Alright, now I'm on a roll. So I think it's just Peach Beach. It goes without saying that after all was said and done, I was incredibly disappointed that I couldn't share the quality of this emulation with you guys, because whenever I was recording at the same time, it was causing that stutter. So what I ended up having to do was I had to take our spare laptop, hook it up to my old Elgato Game Capture HD, because unfortunately the HD60S requires a USB 3.0 port, and record separate game video and facecam video using the laptop and my phone, of all things. I couldn't use the webcam because the original Elgato Game Capture HD has a few second delay, so you can't actually sync it up with OBS to work properly, and that laptop is not powerful enough to record both the game capture and the webcam video simultaneously. It's running on a cheap i3, but I really wanted to share with you guys just how stable and incredibly fun this game can be. That being said, it's still not perfect. There are still some tracks, like I said, that still stutter regardless of how much you've optimized it. One of the other things I had to figure out while playing the Delfino Plaza track was when there are too many objects being rendered at once, it will cause a similar stutter. Not really a stutter, more of just an overall slowdown of the entire game, which wasn't as bad as the stutter for sure, but it was still frustrating. And in order to help mitigate this, I had to turn render culling back on. Culling, for those of you who don't know, is a technique used by developers to de-render images that are off screen in order to save on memory and processing power. Some developers use it more heavily than others. In Mario Kart Wii, I hadn't noticed a huge difference between culling and no culling. Supposedly, it'll allow you to look behind you and see your opponents as you're playing, rather than just in front of you where the render screen is. But turning culling back on actually did help the game to run a bit smoother. So apparently there's just something in that particular track. There's just too many objects in that particular track that, when rendered simultaneously, cause a slowdown in the emulation overall. Another code I saw someone else using online was turning off the music. And again, I may be mistaken on this, somebody correct me if I am. Because the Wii uses an APU, it does not actually have a separate sound processor either, so all the processing is done using the same emulated chipset. Even at the 400% overclock speed that I had it set for, sound emulation can still heavily impact your experience. So if you can find the Gecko code or the Action Replay code to stop track music loading altogether, it may actually improve your emulation experience as well and give you a smoother frame rate. I haven't played around with it yet, but I might in the future. Personally, I think Mario Kart's music makes up half the experience because it's just so damn good and always has been, but that's just me. If you want a more quote-unquote realistic karting experience, well, maybe you shouldn't play Mario Kart, but that's just my 2 cents. But this is another one of those emulation experiences that I highly recommend. If you already own a headset, there is no reason you shouldn't be playing this. If you've got a powerful enough PC to be running Project Cars or Half-Life Alyx or No Man's Sky, Elite Dangerous, any of the really processor heavy, any of the really graphically heavy games, your computer can run this emulator. Now, a word of caution: if you are prone to motion sickness in virtual reality, if you are prone to VR sickness, this game will make you vom. My wife enjoys the room scale virtual reality games that we've played. Job Simulator, a couple of different shooters, stuff like that. But when I tried to get her to sit down and play Project Cars, preloaded, already in a car on a racetrack, she hit the accelerator for about 3 seconds, immediately took the headset off and went to lay down because she felt sick to her stomach. So obviously, these kinds of experiences are not for everyone. She did that on a buttery smooth Project Cars render. So if that happened to her while she was playing Project Cars, which was designed with virtual reality specifically in mind and optimized for it, this would be absolutely nauseating for her. I recognize that, and I recognize that this kind of experience is not for everyone. If, like me though, you are an enthusiast of driving games, vehicle simulators, and virtual reality games and experiences of all kinds, you will love this. Also, fuck Rainbow Road. Seriously. This is the worst way to play Rainbow Road. Rainbow Road already sucks. But this is like the most infuriating and nauseating way to play Rainbow Road. Just don't do it. Skip that track. Take off the headset. Just play normally. Trust me. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on Mario Kart Wii in VR. I still have yet to try out Double Dash or Mario Kart 64, which I have read that both work within DolphinVR as well. I will likely not be making another video, but I will put in the description my experiences with those as well, if anything changed. More or less, I believe it's going to be roughly the same setup. There may be some differentiation in how you set up the HUD, for example, but more or less, it's going to be the same game. As always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Really helps me out. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think about this kinds of videos. These are just more or less my lazy, throw it together real quick kind of videos. Just want to make commentary and talk about stuff. I love talking about video games. I love talking with you guys about video games. So let me know what you think. Until next time, peace.
Shit, did I really? Okay, good. There's a grate now. In past games, it was just open canyon. I'm like, no! You lose so much progress. It's horrible. Or maybe I'm thinking of Wario Stadium. Either way, it's fucking the worst. Yep. Haha. That ain't much, but it's honest work. Shit, no! I wanted you to drift the other way. This will do in a pinch, though. At least I got the item. Damn it. I didn't get the item. I wasn't going to save that. Did I at least hit Toad? No! You little dick! Come here, you little cunt. Oh, fuck! Nope, I ain't doing that. Damn it. Yep. Yep. Come here, I got you, you little shit! Suck on them apples! I ain't losing no mushroom-headed little snappy butthole. Eat my ass, Toad. Mario is number one. That feels good. Oh, this is jank. Okay. Skip. I mean, this isn't the important bit, but still.
Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the after video tutorial. I'm going to run through this as quickly as possible. Let's go. Download DolphinVR 5.0 250 from the DolphinVR website, install it, run it, and this should be the screen you get. You may or may not see Mario Kart Wii there if you have or have not set up your ISO folder yet. If you do not have Mario Kart Wii in ISO format, this will not work. You need it in ISO format for this to work. In order to get that ISO format, you can rip your own game if you have a copy already, but do not download or copy a game you don't legally own. I do not condone piracy. accuracy. So we're going to start with the hotkeys setup. So you're going to go up to options, you're going to go to hotkeys settings. Specifically, you need to set up 5 hotkeys here: free look move up, move down, zoom in, zoom out, and free look reset. The reason for this is that when you load up Mario Kart Wii, after you get into the actual race itself, you are going to have to zoom in and then move the camera down just a little bit in order to match it to Mario's head. You don't need to worry about left and right. You're going to be straight centered the whole time. If you have one, I would recommend setting these to buttons on your racing wheel that are not being used otherwise. That way you don't have to use multiple controllers in order to get this set up. If you do not have a racing wheel, or you are using a controller that already has all its buttons used up, you can actually set these to keys on the keyboard or to another controller hooked to your computer. Just know that you will have to find these keys blind, so be able to do that without being able to see your controller or your keyboard. 2, open up the config options. Copy these exactly as you see them. You can pause the video. You don't need me to do anything else. Bam, 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 bam. Under your paths tab, bam, you're going to hit add and you're going to point it to the directory where you're keeping your game ISOs. I'd recommend you keep them on an SSD if you have one, as it benefits from the faster loading times. Bam! Under the advanced tab, you want to enable CPU clock override, set it to 400%. When you overclock that, it allows for faster rendering and higher resolutions, which you need if you are running this in VR. Section 2, graphics. Copy, again, exactly as you see them to start. You can play around with them as you go. Every PC is different. These won't always work exactly the same. Bam, use OpenGL. You can use Direct3D 11. It will take advantage of your GPU. However, I have found that OpenGL still renders faster, and it looks just as good as trying to render with Direct3D. Don't use full screen. When I used full screen, it crashed. If you can get it to work on yours, good for you. Don't use full screen. Bam! Set your internal resolution to match your headset as close as possible in vertical resolution. The Vive and the Oculus are 1200p vertical resolution headsets, so I set it to 4 times native resolution, which will accommodate for a 1440p. Technically, you could use 3 times native resolution and it would work. However, I found that 4 times native resolution does actually render cleaner. It looks better in my headset due to the downscaling algorithms that the headset itself uses. Anti-aliasing none, anisotropic filtering 1. Play around with those settings after it. Don't worry about it otherwise. Bam! Hacks. EFB copies disabled actually disables the minimap on the screen. You'll notice that you saw floating heads but no actual minimap there. You can turn this checkbox off in order to turn the minimap back on. However, it is not necessary, and I actually find that it is a bit intrusive in your gameplay. Bam! Load custom textures and prefetch custom textures. These are 2 settings you need to make sure you have checked off if you are using high-resolution texture replacers. I would highly recommend using those. I'm going to leave a link in the description to the video that I got mine from. He also has the hide object codes to get rid of Mario's head in there as well. I'm going to show you how to copy those here in a minute. Bam. Controllers. First off, if you're using one and you can make this change, go into your racing wheel control panel. It should have been installed with your driver, and change the wheel's rotation/angle setting to 180 degrees. This will keep you from oversteering, which the game gets a bit confused on if you oversteer. Luckily, with the Thrustmaster TMX and Thrustmaster T150 wheels, it should actually lock up and prevent you from steering any further. Of course, you can brute force it, which is going to put more wear on your motor, but it technically shouldn't hurt it because it is a force feedback wheel. That's what it was designed for. But I would still recommend taking the time to do this. Port 1, use standard to controller. It's going to be a GameCube controller. Do not set it to racing wheel. Do not set it to anything else unless you want to fight with it. Basics here are pretty straightforward. Your accelerator pedal is going to be your A button. Brake pedal is going to be your B button. Your left shifter is going to be L, which is your item. Right shifter is going to be R, which is going to be your jump and slide button. D-pad left and right, you want to set to D-pad left and right on the controller, so that way it doesn't mess with your wheel, which is actually going to be set to control stick left and control stick right. You want to set that for the axis for your wheel itself. Control stick up and down, I would recommend setting to D-pad up and D-pad down on your wheel. Reason being is that you're using a directional item. You want to be able to direct it. If you do not have up and down control stick set up, the D-pad will not actually direct the item up or down. Don't worry, it's not going to mess with your menus. It's not going to hurt your game. Bam! There is a Wiimote emulation option. I do not recommend this. It will not work unless you are using a real Wiimote hooked up via a Bluetooth adapter, which may work. I haven't tested it myself. Do it at your own risk. I don't recommend it because it will mess with you. Boom, VR options. Copy this exactly as you see it. Free look sensitivity does need to be set to 40. Under VR game, bam, you want to set every one of these values exactly as you see them here. The reason being is that this will actually change the HUD and it will pull it forward so that way it's visible, but it'll actually explode it out a little bit so that way it's not interfering with your vision while you race. Bam, and bam. And last but certainly not least, you need to go into game properties. Right click on your game and click properties. Once again, set these up exactly as you see them here. Don't worry about the info or file system tabs. They will not be used. Bam, 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 bam. Under the Hide Objects tab, your first-person Mario codes will not be there. What you're going to do is you're going to need to go to that other video I was talking about. I put a link in the description below, and you're going to need to download the file that contains both the high-resolution textures as well as these codes. You're going to have to copy these codes into your game INI file. After you have them downloaded, here's where you need to go to do that. Go to your DolphinVR installation folder, go to the sys folder, the game settings folder, and then right-click on rmc.ini. That is your initiation file for Mario Kart Wii. You're going to right click it, you're going to click on properties, go to the security tab, click on edit, click on users, or whichever designation you want to change it to full control allow. Check off that box, hit apply, and then hit OK. Close the properties windows, and then open up rmc.ini in Notepad and add the following lines below the hide object codes section. You don't have to copy them as you see here. Like I said, I would recommend downloading them in the link in the description below. And that should be about it. Make sure you start up either SteamVR or your Oculus Rift headset initializer before you press play on Mario Kart Wii, otherwise it will not load into your headset properly. If it's off center when it loads, hit that free look reset button that you signed earlier. This resets the render environment to directly in front of you. You can use that reset button multiple times if need be in order to get it just right. And that's about it. If I messed anything up, somebody correct me in the comments. I will try to update it in my description. Otherwise, I will see y'all in the next video. Peace! Bam, bam, bam.